ladies and gentlemen, and my fellow panelists, thank you for having me here. Be rest assured, I'm not going to be talking in reverse, so I'm going to be talking straightforward so that it makes sense for all of us, right? Let me begin by sharing a story. Do we know what was the world's first animation movie? The world's first animation movie was called as The Three Little Pigs. It was one of those moments in humanity, where something comes along and it captures our imagination in ways we have never imagined before. Like I'm sure we had those moments in our lives where, say, an iPhone came along, a phone without buttons, for example. So it was one such moment. This was in about 1910s and 1920s. It was about that time period, created by Walt Disney. Now, this movie was a 7.5-minute animation movie, and the world had never seen something like that before. So needless to say, this movie was a phenomenal success. It had great accolades coming its way. Now this team came back, and now they have found out a formula to make big successes, and now they had to create the next movie, obviously. What do you think was the next movie they created? It was Pig Stories Part 2. Now, Pig Story Part 2, by all business logic, should have been a phenomenal success, but it was a disaster in the box office. Now, like good students of MBA colleges, they went back and they did their root cause analysis and whatnot, and they came up with a very, very interesting conclusion. The conclusion being that people love pigs a lot, because if you know the Three Little Pigs story, there is Biggie, Middy, and Minnie. So people love the pigs, so maybe we got our execution wrong. So they created Pig Story Part 3. It bombed in the box office. But we must give it to the persistence of the team. It went to Part 4, Part 5, Part 6, Part 7, Part 8, Part 9. By this time, Walt Disney was bankrupt. Now, when I'm saying Walt Disney, I'm talking about the actual Walt Disney who was alive at that point in time. Now, he was a very, very worried man. So he was taking a morning walk, and he was trying to figure out what exactly is going wrong. And suddenly, a moment of insight hit him, and he came back, he called his team, and he said, I know where we are going wrong. We can't beat pigs with pigs. I'm repeating that again. We can't beat pigs with pigs. To put it in another way, doing more and more of the same is not going to get us anywhere. That's what Walt Disney's biggest realization was. And thanks to that realization, that gave birth to Snow White and Seven Dwarfs, world's first full-length animation movie of 2 hours and 10 minutes, which still holds its presence in BBC's top 100 movies. Now, the reason why I share this story is I think the biggest threat we are speaking of is fostering innovation in corporate India. And as someone who's a practitioner of innovation working with organizations to foster innovations, what I find is the biggest threat that we are facing today is pigification of the thinking. The biggest threat we need to, in every organization that I find, is where people are comfortable in doing more and more of the same. Where more and more of the same is what gets rewarded, not the Snow Whites. And that is the challenge that I hear from leaders of the organization today. Would you like to do an exercise with me? I think exercises seem to be the theme of the day, so I might as well jump into the foray and do something. Unleash the children in you, my kind request. So I'm going to give you a set of alphabets. I want you to pronounce the word for me. Is that all right? Yeah. For example, EAST. Not because I want energy from you guys, because the exercise needs this. I want everyone to be your loudest and repeat it together. EAST. East. Or I might give you a clue. Sun rises in the east. That was only the trailer. Now the exercise starts. JOKE. 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 POKE. 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 SMOK. 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 Competitor of Pepsi. Competitor of Pepsi. Competitor of Pepsi. Competitor of Pepsi. White of an egg. White of an egg. White of an egg. Is white of an egg yolk, my friends? The yellow of the egg is the yolk. And the white of the egg is egg white or albumin. Now, you notice this has nothing to do with our intelligence. It just took less than 30 seconds for us to get pigified in our thinking, because our mind because our mind is a sucker for patterns. There is a comfort in doing more and more of the same, and that is what we need to break, right? So what does it take to break that? I'm just going to give some quick perspectives of what some of the things I have witnessed in organizations in my work. The first thing that needs to shift is what we are comfortable with. What is an acceptable state of performance? It needs to move from initiating quick fixes and continuous improvements, which is basically for maintaining the orbit, stabilizing in the current orbit, to focusing on transformative solutions and game-changing leaps, which create quantum impact, which is basically for shifting the orbit. The fundamental focus on the language of what gets rewarded and what gets appreciated within an organization needs to move from orbit maintaining to orbit shifting. That is the first shift that is needed. So the compass has to be reoriented in a manner. Now, I want to give you an example of a team that managed to create a Snow White in a product launch, one of the projects that we did. This was Mahindra Xylo. I don't know how many of you are aware. Mahindra Xylo was the first product that came after Scorpio. And needless to say, Scorpio was a cult-creating product, isn't it? So they tried to juice Scorpio as much as they can, to the extent there was nothing more left to juice. And then Mahindra realized that they were getting juiced. So we need to create a new product. And then came Xylo. Now, the team was so focused on creating because the expectations from the market was very high. They were going against, needless to say, Toyota, who are the market leaders in the MPV category. The team was so busy and the product was ready. They fixed up the launch date, looking at the horoscope of the chairman of the company, and needless to say, and had a brand ambassador and entertainment and whatnot, hotel venue fixed, and suddenly they realized the bubble has burst in 2008. The product launch was scheduled for 2008, just 4 days after the bubble burst. Now, this was a team which felt that they could sell about 300 units per month because they were safe people. They realized that we are going up against Innova, 300 units should be possible. And now suddenly the team realized that the sentiment is going to be negative with the market, so we can't do any more of that. So they came up with a brilliant strategy to go and tell the board, let's defer the launch. And needless to say, again, thanks to all the Excel sheet knowledge, they did all possible analysis to convince the board as why the product should not be launched now. Now, Anand Mahindra's only point was, listen, I have pumped in 350 crores into this product. I want this product launched. Now, here is a team which is sitting and feeling like a victim, and this is where the negotiation starts. The board telling at least sell 150 units, and the team telling that even 100 units is not possible. And this team, this very same team, took on an impossible challenge of why should we do more and more of the same and come up with the usual way to launch a product? Why can't we fundamentally change it? The aspiration that they took on was, the team was in a state that where every industry is doing bad in recession. Why is the board not understanding us? Can't they be a little more merciful? Because recession is a reality in the market, so they took on the challenge of doing an Om Shanti Om for the automobile industry, because Om Shanti Om was launched at that point in time at the peak of recession, and still it went on to become a 100 crore movie, which means there is no negative sentiment in the market. It's what the Excel sheet tells us. Now, what does doing Om Shanti Om meant for Xylo? The very same team which said selling 100 units is not possible took on an aspiration of selling 5,000 units per month, an impossible target. And at the peak of recession, when Xylo launched, how much did they sell? First month, 6,000 units. Second month, 6,000 units. Third month, 6,000. Going on to become one of the most historic automobile launches in the history of this country at the peak of recession, to the extent where they earned even the competitors' respect on how to launch a proper product. This I'm telling from a strategic innovation perspective. Let me come to the state of one of the works that we did in Titan. Now, innovation, if you notice, still continues to remain elitist. If you are from a manufacturing organization or if you are from a sales organization, whichever organization that you are representing, innovation is not something for the area sales representative to think about. Innovation is not something for the shop floor worker to think about. So I started with the thinking how to democratize access to the innovation, and that gave birth to the Titan Innovation School. That is where at least the journey started with my partner in crime, LRN, who was the CEO of the jewelry division at that point in time. Today, a group of 140 employees from the shop floor, who are essentially karigars, have added 500 crores to the bottom line of the company. 500 crores to the bottom line of a company that is not manufacturing-led, but it is marketing-led. They have come up with product innovations which the marketing team themselves have not conceived of. For example, they question the simple thing, why should a jewelry product be static? Why can't it be dynamic? So they have created a pendant, a flower pendant, which the woman basically keys before putting it on, and every 5 minutes the flower blossoms and closes, which is not static jewelry, now it is animated jewelry, challenging the boundaries that existed in the market before, or a jewelry that changes from a finger ring to a bracelet to a necklace. Not just that, 3xing the productivity of the plant without adding a single manpower, 420x jump in productivity. All these are the possibilities done by the very same group of people in a very, very short span of time, just 5 days, in a very short span of time, because they shifted their mindsets, because the organization encouraged them to do orbit shifting. The invitation that I am placing in front of us is, when we go back to our own organizations, let's reorient the conflicts to orbit shifting and not orbit maintaining. Thank you.